think I might have changed the sound now. Is that correct? Let me know if sound is on and video is on. Sounds on. Frederick said sounds on now. All right, excellent. And welcome everybody. Perfect. All right, let's get started. This is the second episode of the social belonging in vocational education and training. My name is Gorm Jørgensen. I am a consultant within Student Pulse, and I will just be presenting the actual playbook today, an unpacking of the actual playbook. How do you run your first session of social belonging in vocational education and training? I'm going to go over some of the tools, the process, and essentially, hopefully, give you everything necessary to do that with confidence. In the webinar software, there is a tab called Handout, and if you want to download the slides, those are available for download at that tab. So feel free to knock yourself out. Okay, let's get started. So as I said in episode 1, and if you didn't look at the episode 1, it is available in Demio in this webinar platform, or you can go to the website. I'll show it later in the webinar and review episode 1. Today, I'll be going very much and very specific into the what. So last time was all about the science of belonging and social belonging and Greg Walton's work. And today we will be talking about the actual playbook and getting ready for your first social belonging intervention in class. And again, I'm just going to say it here that there's a certificate of completion. So when you have participated in all 3 episodes, there will be an opportunity to receive a certificate that you can add on LinkedIn. And next episode, which will be next week, you will have the opportunity to try this as a student. So we will essentially online conduct the actual VICE intervention for everybody to try as a student. So feel free after today to go out and do it yourself, or wait until next week so you have been through it like a student. So last time I was talking about social belonging, and that a lot of students are asking that question, and that is both related to what I was talking about last time about identity groups, essentially meaning that every person has different identities that they might contribute to experience of adversity. So if they experience something, they might think that what they experience is because of that identity that they have. And that could be skin color, origin, social income. All these negative personalities, could be approved. So when they experience adversary, kind of approve that they do not belong. I did go over some of the research from what a 50-minute actual intervention can do, and we'll go into details today. And then I briefly explained last time that based on the US research, VICE interventions is best done to a very specific set of students that has kind of a very specific identity that we want to target. But for European context, and I'm going to go through that today, but it's very hard with the privacy and GDPR in Europe to actually know anything about the students and providing very specific interventions. So we took a different approach, and I'm going to go through it today. So the 2 different interventions that I will cover is what I call the classroom session. It's a 50-minute or 45 to 1 hour actual classroom session. That's what you're going to experience next week if you attend episode 3 here. And then I'm going to talk you through the digital pathway, which is a more self-catered process for students. So the classroom session, I'll talk you through the teacher guide. What does it mean to actually conduct it? What are the steps? And then I'm going to talk you through in step 3 here, the digital pathway. How does it work? What is the surveying? How is it triggering? And how is it working? And the last part of this webinar today will be briefly about access and languages, because we did work across 5 different European partners in this project and did a lot of translation. But if you're participating from anywhere else, feel free to reach out and we'll see how we can accommodate to actually provide access in your local language. We would be happy to support that. Great. So let's get started. The two different interventions that we will be talking about are very different. So the first one is the classroom session. And the classroom session of device intervention is intended for all new students. So it's kind of universal. But it has to be students that are starting in a new educational setting. And for this particular, the stories and everything we have created here is targeted vocational and education vet students. The format is in class, it's teacher-led, and it's between 45 and 60 minutes. And device intervention, the actual reflection and the stories that they're going to read is for everybody. And the trigger here is, there's non-automatic trigger. They're not identified through any means. It's just that all new students starting in a full cohort is run through this intervention. And the outcome here is that it normalizes struggle. So every time any human are entering a change or these, they're starting at a new institution or education, they will feel that, I'm not belonging. And so the outcome here is to normalize that and ensure that based on Greg Walton's research, change that perception of students belonging. So that's the classroom session. I'm going to go through that in more details. And then there is the digital pathway. And the digital pathway here is a different one. So that's essentially students that receive a survey. And, the survey could be an email, it could be a QR code, it could be an SMS or text message. The students receive the survey and they go through the survey, and the survey, if you look at the purpose here, would, based on their answers, identify who could mostly benefit from social belonging intervention or bias intervention. And based on that, it will signpost it and recommend that that student takes the actual intervention. It's individual, it's online, it's self-paced. It means that it scales very different than the in-class room session. But also on the digital pathway, it's a lot smaller number of students who will actually, participate in the actual intervention. For this purpose, in this project, we're using student polls. And student polls is the microsurvey platform. And based on their responses, we will guide them to the belong.vet website. What I'm more interesting here is that students go online, they read the stories, they reflect, and they have the opportunity to share. So it's all a digital online version of the intervention. So just remember that there's two very different. There is the classroom session for everybody starting in a new school. And then there is the digital pathway, which essentially could be for everybody at any institution that could receive this. So let's go a little bit more into the details on the actual classroom setting and how that works. 45 to 60-minute teacher-led session, all new students. The actual intervention is only required, there's only required one session. There's no follow-up required. All of Greg Walton's research was based on a single intervention that took around 45 to 60 minutes. And go back to review the webinar episode 1 if you want to understand what the actual intervention is or how it's working in that regard. It was all new students, no pre-selection, no labels. It's important that everybody just kind of participates in this. You don't need any specific competencies or capacity. You don't have to be a counselor or any specialist. Within the project, everybody who conducted the device intervention were ordinary teachers, no specific requirements in this regard. And then we have created the belong.vet website. And if you want, I'm going to go through it in a second. That's the free platform. That's where the stories are and the reflection sheet for the students. So there is an online component within the classroom where they can go through the different things. And also on the website, we have the teacher guide available. It's not really a download, it's more like online available, but there is a teacher guide there that essentially goes through the same thing that I'm telling you today. So that's what's there. So let's go one step deeper. So what's happening at the actual intervention here? First of all, there's something about pre-framing that is important. So why are we doing this? And that requires a very strong pre-framing for students. And the core here is that it's not about them, it's actually about next year students. So we are collecting advice for next year students. And since everybody here, you are the students and you're the experts, what would you have loved you knew when you started here? So we kind of pre-frame everything that we're going to do it's not about you guys, it's about you helping next year students. And then after we did different things across the project here for the last couple of years, we came up with, okay, it requires some kind of icebreaker to get students going. So usually you will ask them, think what do you wish you had known when you were new at this place or the first week you were here? Think about it, talk about it in pairs, and then share a little bit about it. So you will ask students to essentially just have a discussion about what would they really have known, I wish they had known in the beginning. And then you as a teacher or the conducting the active intervention, the more you can share about your own story, the better. At least that's what we found during the project when we did several pilots across different European countries. So it really builds rapport and confidence from the teacher if you can share a personal story about social belonging. And there is a little bit of a structure to that story, so I'm gonna talk you through that. But essentially, it's important that you can share a personal story. Then the fourth part here is where it takes a little bit more time, because it's about setting it up. 1, 2, and 3 is about pre-framing, setting it up. The fourth is about students actually reading other student stories. So the core message is, okay, before you share your message for the future students, we want you to read over some of the other students that was here last time, just to read over what they thought about starting at this place. And then after you have read that, we would want you guys to share your story. Depending on how you're conducting this, so this was done very differently across our different partners across the different European countries. Some did actual prints of the story, so students could read, just one-on-one. They could sit down, read the stories. Some added the stories to slides and read them out aloud. So it really differs how you want to do that. The third way is actually to send the students to the website, because they will be able to read the stories on their laptop or on their phone, or listen to the story if they're not very good at reading. They will be able to hear a recorded version of some of the languages, at least. So the first part is 1, 2, 3 here. You set up your pre-frame. The second part is you just put the students through the stories. So every student read over a couple of stories, usually around 4 or 5 different stories. I'll show them in a second. And then you'll ask them to do the actual reflection. So the reflection piece here, we tried both print. So we actually had reflection sheets where students were, by pen and paper, putting reflections on, what would I recommend future students, or we did it online. We ended up going with our online reflection sheet. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is it puts a lot of pressure on you as an instructor or teacher to actually collect all of the reflections and what are you going to do about it. The second one is that it's a lot easier for a lot of vet students to actually record the reflections if they are putting it in a digital form online, because all modern phones allows text or speech to text. So they will have the opportunity to just speak what they want to have into the reflection sheet. Good. So this is actually it. And I'm going to share you. This was just a little bit from the story, but I'm just going to do a quick demo here of the actual website. So let's just go here. So let me just start. So if you go to the belong.vet website, this is what you this is kind of the front page, and the front page is intended for students to read here. If you go here and you go to the teacher guide, you will have a full instruction on how do I do it, what is the research behind it, how do I actually do the implementation, the pre-framing setup, the icebreaker that I'm just going through. And also here you'll be able to register to this webinar. You'll be able to see the episode 1 that was from last week. But here you also have the opportunity to download the student stories that you can use in slides, or you could put it in print, depending on what you want. So this is kind of the teacher guide. If we look at the front page here, so assuming that you, sorry here, I just went on the Danish one. That was not intended. We will just go back to the English one here. So when students arrive here and you want them to read over the stories online, you can choose that if you want. You can say, hey, go in here, use your phones or your laptops, and read the stories. And here you will see different stories from other students that we have curated and written to ensure that they align with Greg Walton's research. These are based on true stories, but they're rewritten to ensure that they follow the appropriate structure. But here you will have, the students will have the opportunity to listen to the story, or they can just read over the stories. And the last part here is the actual reflection sheet. So let's assume you conducted the introduction, you either had the stories on slides or the students went in here. Now you want them to do the reflection sheet here. And the reflection sheet here might be used to be shared anonymously with future vet students. And then we will ask them a series of questions. The most important one here is their story. So what was the biggest concern when they were starting? How did you find your place and build connection? And what would you want other students to know? And essentially, we would prefer that they put the story in here. If they use their phone, they'll be able to talk to it. So this is the in-class intervention and how that essentially work. I'm going to go back here to that. So 1 to 3, you set up the room. On the 4th one, you either print them, you read them out aloud, you put them in slides, or you ask the students to go to the website to read through those curated. And those are available in different languages. I didn't show that, but there's several different languages. And the last one is go to the same side, just move on one piece and do the actual reflection there. And that's about it. It takes 45 to around 60 minutes, everything in total. Good. So what makes a belonging story actually work? And this is the same recipe that we are using for the stories online. Obviously, students can follow this when they're, want to share that. So they will share the story that they have in their own words, and we will potentially rewrite them if required. But when you're sharing the story as a teacher or instructor and saying, hey, I have some experience as well, the core story that Greg Walton is referring to is that you have to explain it was hard in the beginning. I started in a new job. I had no colleagues to eat lunch with. I was always sitting alone. But then there was a new guy started, and I could see like he was struggling as well. He didn't know anybody. He was eating alone. And then obviously someday I just asked somebody, hey, where are you guys eating? And they took me to their table, and I figured out this is just how it is. Like, it's not it's not me there's something wrong with, this is just how it is to start a new place. And it got really better. And I figured out that every time somebody new starts, I just ask them to get over here. It's not perfect now, but I learned that this is how it works. So essentially, the core story is here. There was adversity. I had a different perspective on it. It was not just me. This is how it is to start in a new institution or a new work or a gym. This is how people feel it. Then something changed. I did something different. All right. So what is the secret essentially to this very basic, like reading another story and passing it on? In social psychology, it's about convince themselves that it's a message, essentially like I'm helping somebody. That I don't think that I'm helping myself, but because I'm writing to future students, that changes something in in people in general. That passing on a positive story about overcoming adversity changes the perspective when you experience adversity in the future. And Greg Walton and his team call this "saying is believing." So it's a lot about writing story that changes the perception of this. And when they share the story online at the website, we already have hundreds of different student stories that we can curate and rewrite to essentially be able to share in future students. Some students, they have the opportunity to say, hey, I don't want my story to be shared, but it's an opportunity for them to have. If you want access to your stories as an instructor or teacher, we can definitely sort that out. But for now, we will make sure that this story is safe and it's completely anonymous for the students. Okay, so this was the classroom part, the manual classroom intervention. Let's take a quick look at the digital pathway. It's a little bit different. And for the partners that are participating in this particular webinar, some of you guys are also doing this. And if you are not a part of the project, but just interested in this other approach, which is more scalable and more digital in that sense, feel free to reach out and we'll figure out a way to get you sorted. But essentially, students receive a short microsurvey through Student Pulse. And Student Pulse is a microsurveying tool. It could essentially be any other survey tool. The core here is that in Student Pulse, we have the opportunity to trigger different actions based on different questions. So one question we ask for measuring sense of belonging is, I feel like I can be myself at this school. And based on their feedback to that question, we will potentially trigger the social vice intervention protocol. And with that, on the fourth one, they're guided to the BelongVET website that you just saw. And they will be able to read the stories and share their story without any teacher intervention. So it's about, first of all, sharing a link or a survey. It could be through Teams, email, you choose the method, but it's about students feeling that they can, on their own time, do that. And if somebody's watching here and want to try this through Student Pulse, we will absolutely free set you up with it and allow you to try it for that part. I just took a few pictures here from our associate partner from the US, and the reason for that is obviously because it's English, so it's a little bit more fun for everybody to read than our European partners, which is all localized. But so this could be an example how it looked like. Welcome to this check-in. Imagine that your student receiving this at any time, not in class, but anytime. It could be you're on campus, you're off campus, you're in the bus. You receive this QR code or this link for check-in. And then you are responding to, there are several questions and you can provide feedback as well. But one of the first question is, I feel like I can be myself when I'm at your technical college. And if they are very low in that one, at the end of the survey, we will trigger, hey, your feedback was really helpful. Your story could help other students feel less alone. Would you want to participate in that? And if they click the link there, they will go in their own language to the BelongVET website, and they will essentially go through the same process as I just showed before in the demo. So first of all, land on the front page, hey, we want to have your story. They're going to read through, and they will do the reflection sheet for future students. So the digital pathway is essentially the survey is the trigger. Low belonging response detected, we send them to the BelongVET website. And then they will read and listen on page. They can do it whenever they want, and they can write an advice or their story to future. And the good thing here is, that we can easily target 3,000 students, and it wouldn't require any teacher to be involved. We don't know the actual pickup rate yet of how many students will actually go and do, but assuming that obviously that might be only around 10-20% of all students that participate that will go through and actually share stories. This is just very little effort required from the institution to do that. Also, there is this cool thing about it that they can do audio option, they can really listen, and they will be on their own pace. And then obviously talk to text again, also an opportunity there. So that's the digital pathway as the second one. When we're talking about the BelongVET website, it's free for all, the teacher guide, the stories, and if anybody need other languages, feel free to reach out. We'll see if we can set that up. And then the survey for student polls, that is essentially for the BelongVET project partners right now. But if anybody want to try or have an opportunity to do the digital intervention, feel free. If not, in student polls, you can easily use potentially your own surveying tool and put in a trigger mechanism that will allow them to do the online version of the survey and then the advice intervention. Yes, and those are the languages I think is available now. If there is a need, let's just know. And what will happen next time? You will experience this as a student. That will be the classroom intervention or the classroom session you will try. So you will try the pre-framing, the icebreaker, the stories, and then you will be able to share your own story. And we will try to just do it as we would for students. Obviously, it's only 30 minutes next time, but we will see how that goes. And I'm just gonna take a quick look here at so that will be Tuesday next week, same time. And then you will be hopefully confident to go on and try and go do your advice intervention on your own. This webinar will be recorded. It will be shared in an email with the recording information. It will be available on YouTube as well, and I'll put it on the belong.vet website under the teacher guide. There will be episode 1 and episode 2, and you can just click it and watch it. I am really looking forward to see you guys next week. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need any support with getting you up and running with advice interventions. And then let's go make some vocational students belong in Europe. Thank you a lot for this session. Have a nice one.